consistently.
Quick shout-out, too, to actually, as of announced today, 6th Player of the Year, Razel Ginto for La Tech, because that's going to be a great matchup to watch, Childress versus Ginto in a potential shootout tomorrow, because, again, we just saw La Tech, and Ginto killed us again. The second time she's come to Bowling Green in 2 years.
She loves EA Dill Arena.
Yeah. Just bombing threes and another quick release.
There's not a lot of players that wear something other than Western Kentucky Red that can say that they like EA Diddle Arena.
I love going to that place.
I mean,
I've been going there for 20 years, and I can remember the matchups when, we were in the top 20 and they were in the top 20, and there's some great games there. And the thing I really like, and I admire the same thing in Old Dominion, is you have very knowledgeable basketball fans at those two places. Doesn't mean they don't get on the opposing players, but they're very knowledgeable about the game, and it's a lot of fun to play there.
Best atmosphere in the league, what do you think? Who's the best atmosphere in the league?
Oh, boy.
Ooh, I have to think about that one, too.
That is really tough.
I know for us, Western Kentucky has been, I don't know about best, for us it's been the hardest building to play in. It has been, EA Diddle Arena.
We've never won there since we've been back in
EA Diddle Arena does not hold 12,000 people. It holds, what, 70, I think 71, 7,500?
Something like that, yeah.
But when it's loud in there, it is noisy. And we've had players who struggle with that. We have not gotten off to great starts there. This year was better first quarter, second quarter did us in. And it's just, it can be, in our conference, it can be, it might be just the most intimidating place to play, just because there are knowledgeable fans there, and if you struggle early, it can be a challenge the rest of the way.
Well, and they always have good teams, and that helps too, right? So it's a bad combination trying to go in there and win.
Pretty intimidating with D. Givens.
Yeah. I think Middle Tennessee's a tough place to go play.
It can be, yeah.
When they're really good and their fans are turning out. So but a lot of times it's not. There's places that are tough to go play, and it's not necessarily because of the fan base. It's just whether it's in El Paso or wherever it may be. They're just hard to go and win there.
UTEP fans, very knowledgeable.
Yes.
Very knowledgeable, like Western, like Middle. And yes, I'll tap my own shoulder, Old Dominion as well. But I'll tell you one place that I think is difficult to go to. Two places that are underrated. First one, I'll save the most outrageous one for the next. But the first one I'm going to say is Rice. And it's not just because I was there on Saturday. They only have like 400 or 500 people. It feels like you're playing in front of 3,000 because the acoustics in that building are horrible. They are absolutely horrible. But that's in the best possible way if you're the home team, because it's really hard to hear yourself think. It's hard for me to broadcast a game because everything's echoing around, and I'm having a real hard time focusing. I find myself having to really elevate to make sure that I'm on point and kind of staying with it. So that's one. They had a great crowd, by the way, for our game, about 1,800 people. There was more people for the women's game than there was for the men's game. Not by much, but there was. They had a real good crowd,
and deservedly so.
And that was with Rice baseball, which is a great draw at Reckling Park, right next door, hosting Texas Tech for a series last weekend. Wow. So yeah, kudos to Rice fans. They really showed out big time. That was a heck of an environment. The other one. And we don't bring it up because they just haven't been competitive in our conference, and that's UTSA. Yep. Their student output on campus is awesome. Mm-hmm. Like if you go to not only their basketball events, but also baseball as well. They don't get, and I think the same thing can be said for softball. They don't get a ton of students, but the ones that do show up, they are awfully spirited, and they know their stuff, and they know how to get in your head as well too. So and band's solid too. They'll show up probably way too many people to put into a band for such a small environment at the Convocation Center. But I think you get a team that can get things rolling. That could be a really tough place to win.
Well, and I'll say Malcolm took the Humble Road out of it, but the Thomas Assembly Center, it may be because of that rivalry that we have between Southern Miss and Louisiana Tech. It may not be for the rest of you guys, but let me tell you, they know their stuff. Their band knows their stuff, and their students know their stuff, and it can be a nightmare of a place that you look up there and you see all the banners, and you know the history, and you know what that program stands for in the game of women's basketball. That is not an easy place to go get yourself.
Those are banners you do not see in a whole lot of buildings.
And coming from a couple of programs here, and Brett, you can say this as well. I mean, they do a pretty good job, similar to La Tech at Western, of exemplifying their history on the billboards. Or on the banners and the rafters and whatnot. I totally agree with you when it comes to the TAC. I mean, there is this feel that you get when you get into that place, that there's an aura. You know that you are in a place where there's been big games before, and you get that it kind of pumps you up a little bit from a broadcaster standpoint. I think you see it from a player standpoint, too, when they step on the floor there.
It's hard not to when you look up in the rafters and you see those banners, like you said. And I echo that point, Doug, because it almost makes me want to elevate what I do as a broadcaster when I go in a place like that. And I do think it's really cool, by the way. I made reference of this during the La Tech broadcast on Saturday that, we're representing 3 of the 5 of us here represent 3 of the top 11 winningest programs in NCAA women's basketball history.
Right. Yeah.
And, the fact that we've all come from different leagues and things have morphed. Conference USA relatively new in terms of its current alignment, but it's really cool to have that history represented where we can go to these different places and experience stuff like that.
And I know for our players, they enjoy playing those programs because this is a program, Marshall, we don't have that history. We're still trying to find our history. I know that they feel like they want to elevate their games when they go and play in those places, and it's something they talk about. We talk about as a program. Guys, this is a program that's gotten it done in the past. I mean, you just point up to the ceiling and they see it, and it's great for our conference that we have that history for those 3 programs.
But Marshall is one of those programs, and I think you can lump Charlotte, you can lump UAB in on this, and Rice too. These are programs that may not have the banners to show for it right now, but really are in a healthy position as a program. I think the job Tony Kemper has done the last 2 years with Marshall has been really impressive. He has played above his skis. The job that he's done with his players and what he gets out of his team, especially in conference play the last 2 years, it's been pretty impressive watching Marshall play.
He's doing a really good job, Doug, and it's so exciting, I think, for you to see his players buy into what he does because he's so into it. And I think, again, and as you mentioned, 17 conference wins, that's the most we've ever had in a 2-year span in our league. And I know it's weird. We play 16 league games. Some years we play 18, but that's a statistic that I know that's important to him. It's important to our program. And again, along the line of tough places to play in our conference, Huntington's up there. You guys have been there, especially sometimes on the back half of the Thursday, Saturday, and I mean, you just see it sometimes.
I've been up there more times than I want to be. They never send you guys to us.
I haven't been above 34 degrees either. Every time
we saw the sun for the first time in Huntington during football
I haven't
season.
seen it yet. And look, I've been there for softball, baseball, football,
I have been too.
and basketball.
I don't think the sun comes out.
Sometimes we've been known to get to. Sometimes you can't get there. Sometimes we've been known to get you there, and keep you there for a few days.
Freeze us there.
Malcolm had a 90 to 88 triple
overtime
game
last year.
But sometimes off that the back end of the Thursday, Saturday, it can be a bit of a challenge this year. But again, like I said, it's so exciting just to be here, and I think just all the things we've been talking about right here, just a chance to get us all together and kind of see how it's going to play out tomorrow. I know that's something that our people are excited about, and just. And I know with Marshall, we both traveled together. Well, let me back up. We would have both traveled together. Our men who played at UTSA on Saturday just drove straight here. But last year, we brought both teams together on a plane. And I'm telling you, and you guys know this from working on campus, when you have that kind of synergy between your men and your women's programs, it's great. And it's fabulous. We brought our supporters with us, and we're going to go. But and that's the thing. We're here until we're both eliminated or we both won. And so, if we have one team that loses Wednesday and we have one team that makes it all the way to Saturday, we're all going to be here together. Wow. And that's something that's been great for us, and I hope that a lot of schools can really consider when you have both programs that make it here.
That's not a group I'd want to face because it's the whole herd coming at you at one time. I mean, that's
to give a radio reset, and it would be inappropriate. Actually, probably inappropriate to take 42 minutes to get to a radio reset. But I'm going to do it right now. Malcolm Butler from Louisiana Tech, Jason Corriher from Marshall. Am I saying your last name correctly? Corriher. I knew I've been butchering it.
All good.
Sorry about that, man. I'm already pegged down to
first time I've learned
I'm down
what
to
it
D
was
level here this week.
We knew him as Jason at Marshall. That's how we knew him.
Jason at Southern Miss is also here with us. Jason Baker, and then, of course, Brett Williams on the right side from Western Kentucky. As we go through here, you already know who I am. You're on my Facebook page. Anyways, happy to have you all with us again. I was talking about a couple of shout-outs. First of all, Reagan Hill with Charlotte was kind of bouncing around back here. She was formerly with Old Dominion as our senior woman administrator. It was good to see her. I only bring that up because I'm going to talk about Charlotte in a second. But then Steve Cotton, Mike Hamrick, voice of the men's basketball team at Marshall, and of course the athletic director at Marshall, your boss, of course.
No wonder you've been so well behaved. I didn't realize he was sitting behind us.
You know what? Is he still here?
Shout out as also to Tim McNamara of Conference USA, kind of rolling by. Again, we are right here in the middle of things here at the Omni Frisco Hotel at the Star, and special thanks to the folks at the Omni to help let us set up shop here in the lobby area on really last-second notice. Really appreciate their hospitality and making this a possibility. But Charlotte, in terms of players that, and I have to take just a real quick look here at the list just to make sure that I didn't jump over it. No, I didn't. A couple of players, I think, on Charlotte that probably could have ended up making the first or second teams, probably second team. Christian Hythe, the UCF transfer. And while I don't think she probably had enough to make all conference, a couple of other players that really stepped up for them this year, Jasmine Harris coming off the bench, and then also Octavia Jett Wilson. You put all those pieces in place with a game changer like Jade Phillips. Yeah. Charlotte, to me, is as dangerous as they have been since they've come back to Conference USA under Kara Consuegra.
I agree. I mean, I like Charlotte a lot. We only played them once this year. We had to go to their place. It was right before we came and played you guys, Doug. And, I mean, we couldn't score up there. Again, we didn't shoot it well, but a lot of it had to do with them. And Phillips got in foul trouble in the first half, and I think we were down 8 at halftime, even with her playing like 2 or 3 minutes. And when she played in the second half, she just kind of took over. But they are a really good team. And I said it earlier, it would not surprise me to see them Saturday.
And this is a Charlotte program that if you look over the years, I think it's fair to say, they have not always played their best basketball in February and March. They've had great starts and kind of petered out toward the end. Not last year. They didn't do that last year.
Nope.
And they didn't do that this year. And again, Jade Phillips, and the most athletic player. I feel like that. I mean, the most athletic player we have in our conference. And that's something that's just – it's hard to deal with, I think, for the opposition, and we'll see how that goes.
Along with Ogwumike, Phillips is one player that can just take the game over if she needs to.
Phillips, Ogwumike, Dee Givens can.
Yes.
And at this time of the year, in my opinion, you need a player like that in the conference tournament, because there's going to be times late in games, if you're going to win 4 in 4 days, you got to have that type of player who could take over, and those are the type of kids that can.
And it's going to be extremely interesting to watch Charlotte and North Texas play tomorrow in the opening round, because as we opened up this video with a long time ago talking about how well North Texas is playing right now, and you've got 2 teams that thrive on the glass, 2 teams that thrive in how they execute their defense, and they have playmakers. And you're going to see Anisha George go up against Jasmine Harris, and I'm looking forward to watching how that's going to unfold. And the winner of that game plays us, so we have a big stake in how that plays out.
But we were also talking about how North Texas has been on the rise the last 4 or 5 games after going through all their trials this year. Charlotte won 6 in a row to put themselves into position for a top 4 finish, only to lose the last 2 games against Western Kentucky and Middle. And that Middle game really let things get away from them. They were, 8 points up at home with a little over a minute to go. They've been dynamite at Halton Arena all year long. And then Middle, snap of a finger, they bounce back and they win with 13 points in 68 seconds.
Wow, I didn't see that.
Are you kidding?
Guys,
Wow.
Doesn't
look at the highlight. Tony
depth?
Stinnett from Middle Tennessee, he posted that on their Twitter page. Check out the video recap of that. It is really something.
And doesn't that speak to the depth of this league right there? That a Middle can flip that switch like that all of a sudden in a minute time span and swing a game. 10, 12 points that fast. To me, and look. And we just mentioned people who can take over a game. Anastasia Hayes can do it in a New York second as well, and she's got her sister helping her right out there in the backcourt as well.
Yeah, we haven't talked at all about Middle Tennessee, and what's interesting about them is
it's amazing that Brett, that it's taken 47 minutes for us to finally get to that point.
No joke. I think what's changed their calculus recently is the addition of Rella Booth, getting her back healthy, and all of a sudden having a post presence. Because we saw them for the first time in week 2 of conference, and they didn't have anybody taller than 6 foot.
Yeah.
Well, now you've got Rella Booth, former Texas star, former high school All-American, and all of a sudden they're able to do some different things inside that they couldn't do. You add that to their shooters, and at the end of the day, if they can stay out of foul trouble, if they can avoid running into a situation where they're playing 5 or 6, and admittedly they still beat us in double overtime when they were in that situation, but if they can keep them on the floor, that team could beat pretty much anybody.
How much did she factor into that game, though, that 0-2 game?
She ended up fouling out in about 15 minutes, but in those 15 minutes she had 15 points and I want to say like 7 rebounds, hit a 3, and just changed everything that they were doing down low. And, I mean, if she doesn't play the way she did, we win that game.
See, that's what's interesting about this league. When you only play each other one time in a lot of these teams, I mean, when we played Middle, she wasn't out there. So I have no idea what Middle Tennessee looks like with Rella Booth playing. Again, UTEP is a team we played back in early January. It's been 2 months since we've seen UTEP play.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when you're only playing some of these teams one time, and again, there's been a lot of key injuries. We mentioned Mulkey, we mentioned Agumake. I know Asia Wayne went out for a while. Shantae Hales was huge for Southern
Ashley
Miss. You
St.
talk
Jean
about a
of
game.
Marshall.
Yep. I mean, there's been a lot of injuries to key kids in this league this year, and so a lot of them healthy, a lot of them still out.
I'm going to pitch one to Brett. Alexis Brewer.
Yes.
She was kind of on her way back to health by the time conference play started up. How far along
She's
is she
back.
at this point?
She's back.
Yeah, she killed us on Saturday.
And
got first sight evidence.
Yes.
I feel like it kind of started right around the time that we came to U2 the first time. I'm trying to put it in perspective exactly when Alexa started coming together, but I do know that the La Tech game was when we broke out of our slump because we'd been shooting at 20% from beyond the arc from the last game of non-conference through the trip to ODU, to Charlotte, to Marshall. It was that La Tech that we finally started shooting the ball, and Alexis has found her game, and she's somebody, obviously, that comes from the Big 12. She's got that gamer pedigree, daughter of Boo Brewer from Louisville. So there's something that she brings this time of year, and we're certainly going to need it if we're going to get to where we want to go.
And look, to hit back on middle, we mentioned freshman a minute ago. We did not mention Aislinn Hayes.
Yes.
I mean, boy, what a absolute player. And she's a freshman to me that could walk into this building tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, take a game. Of course, she doesn't play tomorrow. Play on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and she could take a game over, and she could wind up being the star of this tournament, possibly.
Aislinn and Anastasia, rightfully so, freshman and newcomer of the year in Conference USA, I think. I thought both of them really just shined at so many different points of the year. But you know what? Middle Tennessee's got some players that kind of float under the radar as well. Charity Savage is no longer one of those after 25 boards in a game and getting Conference Player of the Week heading into the tournament. And she's been double-doubles for much of the year. So, again, she's not really fooling anybody at this stage. But somebody like Courtney Whitson or the three-point shooting ability of Taylor Sutton, and let's never underestimate the coaching ability of Rick Insel and his staff, especially when it comes tournament time. He knows how to get his players dialed in at just the right time when it comes to tournament. Their mindset, to me, was the biggest reason why they won a title back in, 2016? They were like the 3 seed or something like that. And they came in, you could just see they were a team on a mission, and they just ran right through everybody they played and won the title. It wouldn't shock me at all that they come in with a similar mindset, but we'll get to a big shortcoming on that. I've got something to bring up to you guys here on them and then also a few others in a little bit.
The Savage kid, I'll give her credit because in this day and age where everybody's transferring, if I don't get to play, I'm going somewhere else. And, she had a very small role for their team for her first 3 years. And give her credit, she stuck it out there. And then this year when she finally got an opportunity as a senior, she's a walking double-double. The Hayes kid, the freshman, is a really good player. I'll be honest, I'm not so sure. And, again, I only got to see both of them one time. But Michaela Woods for UTSA, in my opinion, might have been the best freshman in this league if she didn't go now with, a month left in the season.
And really, again, these Middle Tennessee players we're talking about, we're not talking Alex Johnson. There's no more Alex Johnson, right? Ty Petty and Alex Johnson really made that go for so many games. And Anna Jones, I believe it was, small forward, she's not there anymore. So, and again, these are players that, Coach Insel, of course, he needs no introduction in terms of his credentials, but he's gotten this done with all these new pieces, and he's right back there in the mix again, gotten a bye, of course, and it's just amazing to see how they really kind of just hit reset, and yet some of us, we're hitting reset while we're seated where we are, not them. They are right back in the mix.
So here's the question that I have. This, to me, is the biggest storyline coming in. I mean, of course, you can point in a building that is cavernous like the Star. Three-point shooting is either going to come or go. Some have it figured out. Some will get in there and struggle mightily shooting the ball from distance, especially when they get into certain angles. We've seen that the last couple of years. Who's going to be the good defensive teams. I think we've got that all figured out. Rice, Old Dominion, Charlotte. UAB. Again, with Marshall, very underrated defensive team. Southern Miss, you're always going to be in for a tough battle there when you've got to go 94 feet against the Lady Eagles. Same thing can be said for a younger Florida Atlantic team.
Yep.
So those storylines we have a pretty good feel on. Here's another one I'll pitch to you guys. How important does depth or lack thereof play in this week's championship?
Yeah, I think if you're going to try to go 4 games in 4 days, has to happen. I mean, and everybody has their rotation, right? Maybe it's
– But the rotations have been they've been pretty tight, though.
They've been pretty tight. And I think, again, for us lower-seeded teams, you have to go 9, 10. Even if it's just some spot duty to somebody gets 2 fouls early and you need to buy a few minutes and get them to halftime with those 2 fouls. I think you have to do that. And I think again, back on defensively, it'll be interesting to see if this the clash of styles. You do have you have like a UAB who's not going to get out there and try and take you out of what you do, but they're going to be in the right place. And if you make mistakes, they're going to make you pay. But then you have somebody like WKU who does try and take you out of things. They're not going to let you drive. Somebody drive and kick to the corner, kick to the wings. Western doesn't let you do that. They get out there with D. Givens and make sure they're going to pressure the ball. But it'll be interesting to see how those styles kind of clash and who comes out on top of it.
Well, and I'll say we may be carrying one of the bigger question marks when you talk about depth. What is Hales' role in this Conference USA tournament? She's a player that probably, if she stays healthy, is at least second-team all-conference with her teammate in Leapard.
Yeah.
She was playing fantastic. I mean, even the game against ODU, she had 14 points in about 14 minutes at the start of that game. How does her role play into this? How does she perform? So far, not so good in the last couple of games. Just 3 points in the first ball game back against FAU and 3 points against UAB on Saturday. And then you talk about these different styles. Look, these guys right here in Marshall have made 145 three-pointers in Conference USA play. Southern Miss has made 105 all year.
Right.
That's what kind of difference tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's what kind of I just used one of my keys
nuggets.
for the game.
That is a nugget.
That is a nugget.
You know what? How does that play? And you just mentioned cavernous type plays. Are they going to shoot it well? Or are they not going to? If they don't shoot it well, that game's probably going to the wire tomorrow.
Yep.
Southern Miss has got to find a way to find some scoring without Hales if she's not going to be available. So, Doug, it's such an important question, depth.
And it goes by the way, it goes both ways. A team that has post players, good post players, and Marshall, especially with Ashley having been out for so many games, still trying to work her way back. Again, post play offensively and defensively, something that the Thundering Herds really has to improve going forward this offseason. So again, clash of styles, right? It can be, and that's why you have these tournaments, right? Because it's going to be interesting.
We've played each other 26 times in the history of each. I mean, this is like best friends getting ready to go at it in Conference USA, and old original mates of Conference USA. I mean, that's what's going to make tomorrow fun from the 8-9 game.
Well, I think it's why being a top 4 seed is so important. We keep telling you win 4 games in 4 days. I mean, those top 4 seeds only have to win 3 in 3 days, and that's huge. And I think in a place like where we're going to be playing, which is shown that because of the backdrop and all, it can be hard to shoot. Good rebounding teams are going to have an advantage in there because go get your own miss and lay it in is going to be a lot. And taking care of the basketball, because if you turn it over and they're live ball turnovers and you're giving up layups, anybody can make a layup. It's a lot harder to make a shot when you're being defended.
Anytime you get into a tournament, and this is a lesson I've learned from hockey, it's all about doing the dirty work, right? I mean, in hockey, they talk about in the playoffs, you don't have that time to get all finesse and get pretty with how you score your goals. You go attack the net, and you get those little putbacks, and that's to your point, Malcolm, about the rebounds, taking care of the ball. All the little things matter because at the end of the day, crazy things happen when the lights come on. And like you said, if it's somebody shooting poorly, if it's whatever happens, foul trouble, this, that, and the other, you just have to be disciplined. You have to be bought into what you're trying to do and try to make sure that at all costs you're able to dictate how the game is played. And whoever does that the best has the best chance of getting it done.
I think a lot of it's going to come down to, given the fact that there's not a lot of depth, I mean, who are going to be the players that we just haven't heard a whole lot of?
That step up.
That's going to step up and make something happen. That's always the case when a team goes through and wins the championship. I really don't know on that one. There's some teams that are displaying some depth. For the most part, everybody's played pretty tight on the rotations, as I mentioned earlier. I think that you're going to see it more often than not. It's going to be somebody who really works from about 7 feet in. That's going to be the one that proves to be the difference maker. And I think that one of those people could end up being, obviously, in addition to somebody like Erica Ogwumike, Western Kentucky with Raneem El-Jadawi. She's playing, I think, at the post better than anybody in Conference USA this year. She's been fantastic this season for Western Kentucky.
Yeah, she's been very consistent lately, and it's been really impressive to watch her adjustments at halftime. I talked a little bit about Whitney Creech a few minutes ago, but Raneem in the second half has been so much better than the way she started games because FAU, Middle Tennessee, Charlotte, some of these teams that she dominated earlier, they were able to take her out of the game in the first half, and then somehow she flipped the switch. Now, admittedly, I think WKU has done that pretty well as a team, is sort of getting reset at halftime and being able to come out and take care of their business in the second half of games. But Raneem absolutely has to be strong with the ball, has to be committed to rebounding, as we talk about a lot, she's got to get mad because once she gets mad, she's tough to stop, and certainly, we'll see if she's able to do that.
I will tell you this, not to just totally publicly display my bracket and my ballot rather, but I voted her first team all conference. I believe in rewarding consistency, and I think she's as consistent from January to March, and I think she's deservedly, of that vote. And I mean, she's a force. I mean, she's truly a force in this league to be reckoned with.
And I think one of the factors that you kind of deal with a little bit is game times, right? We're going to play at 11 o'clock local time tomorrow.
Yeah.
The winner of our game in the quarterfinals will play Rice at 11 o'clock. Right, on
That's
Thursday.
right. That's correct.
Those are game times, guys. We don't play, right? We don't play at 11 o'clock in the morning, right? So in terms of players, in terms of your schedule.
Well, Jason, you're a little close to that at Marshall. You guys are always like the early game.
They do like to play early, especially when it's that Saturday game.
We do. But then you look ahead to the semifinals. That second semifinal is going to be listed, right? 8:30 could be later than that.
Yeah.
We'll see. We typically don't play in terms of local time.
You know who will be good at that? Middle, because don't they play? They play
all their night games.
9:25 tip times late on Saturday.
Those are just things again that you deal with in a tournament. It's part of it. It's good. We've got both men and the women playing in the same venue again. Like I said earlier, just from a synergy standpoint on campus and just really in our entire conference, it's good that we're playing. Good, we have everybody together. But again, it's a challenge that we just don't see, typically during the regular season.
I'll turn your question back on you, Doug. I'm interested in your thought on what the Monarchs need to step up and get it done because, excuse me, I feel like almost everybody else in the league has the one or two players that you can point out and say they're going to be the difference makers. With ODU, I think you have about 5.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
in just watching them play, it's hard to say this person's going to go off because if they don't, this other one's going to hurt you, and I think that's why you've been so successful.
I would say that aside from maybe UAB and how far along they are offensively speaking, I would say that we're probably one of the toughest teams to scout for that reason because it could be anybody. I don't know who it's going to be before coming in. I mean, it's really it really just kind of comes down to feel. And for me, it really comes down to, as far as Old Dominion's concerned, their two biggest issues this year have been shooting the basketball, particularly at the free throw line. They have been really bad down the stretch, really dating back to the start of February, and it's starting to bite them. That's part of the reason why they have dropped 3 of their last 5 games coming into Frisco is that while the free throw line hasn't killed them in other games, it's starting to kill them when they're playing some of the top teams in the conference. UAB was a perfect example of that. It wasn't the case against Rice on Saturday. They shot it well at the line, 14-17. Problem is Rice hit every single free throw they took against Old Dominion. So,
Doug, let me ask you this as well on y'all. What's the mindset, right? You lose the last 2. You essentially watch the regular season championship get out of your grasp of a team that's really controlled it for much of this year. Is the mindset deflated, or do you think it's we're going to arrive here and, for lack of a better term, we're going to be ticked off and we're going to show that deservedly so we're ready to get here to Saturday? Do you have a hunch? Do you have a feel of maybe how it'll be?
The feel is more of the latter, but I mean how they act off of the floor and how they respond when they actually play on the floor it could be 2 totally different things. So, I mean, we'll have to wait and see those first opening minutes. But in addition to free throw shooting, again, hadn't been a big problem for them for the year in terms of costing them games until recently. The bigger thing is when they lull, they really lull. I mean, they had a double-digit lead against Western Kentucky. They let slip away in the third quarter. They had a double-digit lead against Marshall that they only scored 2 points in the third quarter and let Marshall come back and take the lead at home. Those are home games, by the way. That's just two of a number of gaps. I mean, they spotted UAB 16 points in the first 8 minutes last Thursday.
Wow.
So those lulls have really stuck out for the Monarchs this year. And for them to be able to win a championship, they have to minimize the impact, the negative impact those lulls have on their game.
And I think you mentioned it. You know, free throw shooting as you come down the stretch, typically, especially in the postseason, right? I think the two things that always stick out to pillars of success, you might say, in the postseason: good guard play, not turning it over, and getting to the line, to the free throw line, and converting.
That's
because because when you come down the stretch, other than maybe a UTEP, right? UTEP's going to try and crank up the pressure and try and speed the game up a little bit. Typically in the postseason, right? You see coaches who want to slow it down. They're going to condense the number of possessions. So if you're going to go there and miss free throws, it's to your own detriment. And I think it's double the case when you talk about the postseason. I think whoever emerges victorious here is probably going to have to convert at a pretty high percentage at the free throw line.
Well, we're starting to get beat by the sun here, as you can tell, in case the stream isn't working right. But, again, in case we're kind of chopping in and out with the stream, I've got it recording, and we will go ahead and be sure to post it later on.